and welcome to So That's What You Do. We are here directly from Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame inductee Benny from Benny and the Jets. Yes, Benny from Benny and the Jets. Take it away, Benny.
I like that. It's kind of nice. Casual. Singing songs, telling story. This is what we do. Benny and the Jets Band. Something happened here. What it is, exactly clear. There's a girl, she's sitting over there, telling us it's time to beware. It's time you stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going round. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going round. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going round. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going round. Hey!
Oh, wow, that was amazing. That's a blast from my past. I love that song. I always used to sing along with it. I almost did with you, but I didn't want to ruin the moment.
We'll start
Benny and the Jets.
Now
Yes, we're going to sing now. Welcome. This is really an honor to have you here. You actually played at my prom. I'm going to age myself here, but in 1979 at Lincoln Park High School, and so I am just honored to have you here. Thank you.
Well, what a treat. I'm glad to be here as well. I'm glad to be here. And that's part of the great thing about being in a band. There's so many stories like that. When I travel around, I'll bump into people that we knew their uncle or we knew their brother, and different stories. Music's a great tie-in with life, and people can document and remember their life by a song or a dance or a place they were.
You're so right. And it's the universal language. That's what really ties everyone together is music. You don't have to know the language. You don't have to know the culture. You just have to know the music. And for some reason, it just puts people on common ground.
It helps put a place in time. You remember when you were a little kid doing the twist, or you'll remember a different dance or a prom.
Or a heartbreak
a
from
wedding.
A song.
Yeah, it could be anything. It all ties in.
It all
it
comes
does.
together. You are such an icon in our area, you know, locally, nationally, internationally. I mean, Benny and the Jets, it's a household name. What was your inspiration? I mean, you are the founder of Benny and the Jets, and obviously, you know, this is really carried longevity, and you're still out there. You're still making beautiful music, even in the changing landscape of music. You're still making music. But what was your inspiration in starting Benny and the Jets?
Well, you know, I was probably like so many guitar players of the era. You know, being a little kid, growing up here, right here in the area. My dad had a place called the Military Inn, which was a famous nightclub at the corner of Telegraph and Warren. And so I was exposed to bands as a young man, and I saw bands, and like a lot of kids my age, when the Beatles came on the Ed Sullivan TV show, we were glued to the TV. And guys like you would see Ricky Nelson on TV,
sure.
And everybody wanted to have a guitar and learn how to play guitar. And I was lucky enough to have a guitar and learn how to play. And the career of Benny and the Jets was so interesting because so many of the early icons we idolized, we ended up meeting and working with and touring with.
Sort of realized your dream.
Yeah, it was kind of eerie cool in a lot of ways. I remember being in third grade doing the twist, and Chubby Checker's hit was such a great song. And one of the very first jobs Benny and the Jets Band ever had was the opening act for Chubby Checker. We toured with Chubby Checker, and here we were 17-year-old kids playing the fabulous Stork Club in Toronto, Canada, where the Royal Canadian Mounties used to do the New Year's Eve celebrations, opening up for Chubby Checker and going on tour around the world. And it was pretty exciting, and it happened pretty fast. And I'm not sure we even realized it was happening. We were so worried about tuning the guitar and getting to the van on time that I don't even know if we really realized all the people we were touching and all the songs we were making and the life that we were living.
Well, there was probably 20 million other bands around there. So what made you different? What made Chubby Checkers go to Benny and the Jets?
That's a great question, you know. And what made the Beatles the Beatles, and what made Elvis Elvis? I think there's a little lightning in the bottle.
At 17 years old,
yeah,
no doubt.
I think there's a little lightning in the bottle, and a lot of it's luck of the draw. And what makes somebody Elvis, and what makes, you know, it's just.
I'm an Elvis fan.
It's a lot of timing, and it's a lot of luck, and it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of being in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time. Because I always used to say the greatest musicians in the world work at the Ford Motor Company, but because of the way life twisted it, they weren't allowed. Life didn't fall in a place where they could go travel and play guitar for a living and go around the world. They had a job and a wife and a kid and a house payment, and they took Ford Motor. It doesn't mean they weren't great musicians. Some of the greatest musicians could be right down the street at the Ford Motor Company.
No, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely, and people are discovered all the time.
You know, it's an interesting topic that we've talked about a lot lately amongst the band, that back in that era there was bands. It seems like there was bands on every corner and live music on every corner. And one of our fears that we have now is the disappearance of live music. Video games have taken over, karaoke has taken over, and you don't see as many kids strumming the guitar like I did when you saw the Beatles on television. They're more likely now to
synthesizers,
to get a computer and play games on the computer. There was a day when you could go down Telegraph Road, and it seems like every mile there'd be a live band, there'd be live music.
Sure.
Now, if you started in Pontiac and went to Toledo, you might have a hard time finding a live band. Back in my generation and my parents' generation, a band would play. In fact, young ladies would go out. They'd go out specifically go out on a Saturday night, and they'd get a seat by the dance floor, and they'd wait for maybe a guy to ask them to dance. And that was social media then. That's how people met each other. That's how maybe
I miss those days.
Maybe my parents met, and maybe their parents met. But my daughter's 25 years old, lives right here in the area, and she's probably never seen a live band, never gone to dance to a live band the way we would, because where is a live band in Dearborn Heights right now? Harder and harder to find. Yes. But if she goes out and they go to a DJ and there's a dance, they jump around and they have fun and they dance, but it's not the same social interaction that when Chubby did the twist. They were right face to face and danced, you know, shoulder to shoulder, and that's how girls met girls, and that was the social media, how couples met each other back then. And it's changed. Things are changing. Not good or bad. It's just a social change that we're seeing.
Oh, I think I sort of missed that one-on-one, that telephone call, that letter, everything. The technology is a wonderful thing, but I also think it takes things away. And music, the landscape of music is totally different, because you do have the synthesizers, and people are not playing the music. It's through computers, and exactly what you touched upon. But what is your take on that? I mean, you've sort of been there with the real bands, and you know, we grew up with the Beatles and Elvis Presley and, you know, Ricky Nelson and Chubby Checkers, and now I'm looking at these other bands, you know, the synthesizers, and to me it's almost like pseudo music. I mean, what's your take on it? How do you feel about that, and the progression of, you know, those bands into what we're seeing now? Yeah,
it is odd that in the days of the Elvis, the Ricky Nelson, Bob Seger played every city.
Elton John.
Every city there was, and had a one-on-one relationship and learned his craft through playing to all those audiences. Now a big star will come right from high school and go to American Idol and never have played in front of people other than on TV or on the Idol. Never had a chance to develop strumming and playing and getting the response from an audience. And so it has definitely changed. The old days of playing your guitar and playing at the high school dance and going to the college dance and getting a job playing for Chubby Checker, those days have kind of changed. And now you go to American Idol, and if you have a great voice, hopefully they discover it and you do great things. But it really has changed. And so by saying that, at the same time, the pendulum does swing. Everything that's old becomes new. Everything that's new becomes old. And so as bands get more computer synthesized, fancier and fancier, eventually they yearn for an acoustic guitar or a ukulele or the hootenanny days of folk music, and then they'll slowly start developing. Some will say, like Bob Dylan started out with acoustic guitar, and then eventually developed to the electric sound, and eventually fancy bands came out with synthesizers. So,
press of the button.
Yeah, there is a pendulum. It'll swing both ways. Right now, we are kind of still in that synthesized era, but the pendulum will swing, and it'll go back to the real roots, and you'll see it. We're already seeing it with bands with violins and mandolins and real roots kind of music. It's coming back. So there's a pendulum. There's always a yearning for what you don't have. It's always greener on the other side.
Right, and you know, I almost equate that to food, because we have all this genetically engineered food, and now you have the movement for more organic and natural food.
Right.
So I really think that's gonna hit the music industry, and maybe it has already.
Yeah.
Because I think going back to the basics, that's what you call music. You don't want to hear something that somebody presses a button to.
Well, you know, there's probably a spot for everything. And we have to be open to all different kinds.
Absolutely.
And find what people like themselves.
Right, and to integrate them. I know you've played with a lot of people. Name drop a little bit for us.
Well, you know, I told you the story about Chubby Checker. That was a great, and it was really an interesting life traveling with Benny and the Jets. I remember opening up for Ricky Nelson. And the people would say, oh no, you have to be very on your good behavior around Ricky Nelson. Ricky Nelson's a big star, and it was almost like the.
He was probably just a normal, regular guy like you.
It was almost like the Secret Service. They say, you can't look at Ricky Nelson, and don't shake his hand, and don't talk to him, and clear out. And we're going, oh yeah, okay, whatever. We'll do whatever we're supposed to do. We'll be very polite. We'll play our songs and get out of the way. And as soon as we got done, we got ready to leave the stage. Ricky came running up to me, and Ricky says, "Benny, I always wanted to meet you." And I'm thinking, now wait a minute. I was the little guy watching TV wanting to meet Ricky Nelson, and I almost thought it was a gag. How does Ricky Nelson want to meet me? Well, as it turns out, Ricky Nelson's dad, Ozzie Nelson, the Ozzie and Harriet show, Ozzie Nelson was the president of the Musicians Union. And there's a union newspaper, and part of the Benny and the Jets process of establishing our name, we took an ad out every week in the union paper, Benny and the Jets from Detroit, Michigan. So it would go around the world through all the union musicians. And so Ricky Nelson said every day he'd come down to his kitchen table where his dad would be reading the newspaper, and there in the newspaper would be the union paper, would say Benny and the Jets band from Detroit, Michigan. And he said, I always wondered who this Benny and the Jets band was. So he came to me and says, I always wanted to meet you. And I'm thinking, well, that should have been the other way around. And he was, just like you say, just a great guy, and we had great times, and we traveled with him and did a lot of things with him. And when Ricky Nelson died, it was, of course, a really sad day.
Tragic.
He died in that plane crash, and I got to tell that story to his kids about their grandfather, Ozzie Nelson, having the Benny and the Jet name in the union paper, and they just loved it because they heard so many stories about Ricky the star, not Ricky the person, and interacting. So they really appreciate it. And great family, great people, considering that they grew up in that Kim Kardashian kind of world.
Oh yeah.
But they seem to do pretty well. They did.
Down to earth.
Yeah.
Well, that's a testament to the way he's raised them as well. You are part of the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame, and that is so exciting. Talk to us about how that came about. You were obviously part of that whole process and nominated. So give us a little bit of an inside scoop on that.
Really exciting for us too. It's something we didn't see coming or know of, and it just happened now just a few months ago. MichiganRockandRollLegends.com Hall of Fame. People can look it up on their computer, and it's really Dr. J, the guy who controls the Hall of Fame out of Bay City, and it's associated with a college up there. And he was really looking to kind of commemorate and document Michigan rock and roll bands, Michigan legends, maybe bands that will never be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And coincidentally, Chubby Checker is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Really?
How famous do you have to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Chubby Checker is not in the Hall of Fame. But he wanted,
That's an oops.
he wanted to find Michigan bands that really deserve some kind of documentation. There's bands from Allen Park, the Frigid Pink, and there was the Woolies from Dearborn, and there was Sunday Funnies and Salem Witchcrafts and Bobby Lewis's, and there was a lot of bands from our area that really...
Bob Seger's from our area,
well,
too,
of course,
right?
Bob Seger is in this Hall of Fame. Bob Seger, Ted Nugent, Mitch Ryder, Question Mark and the Mysterians. Some bands one-hit wonders. Some bands no-hit wonders, but still became legendary in their travels and work in the industry. And this website does a real nice job of touching on that and documenting on that. And I think that's kind of important. There's a lot of musicians that spent their life playing guitar, playing at proms, playing at little concerts in the park, and it's really nice that there can be a place to kind of document that and make that his story.
Now, as fellow Michiganders, have you ever played with Bob Seger and Ted Nugent? Have you what kind of interactions have you had?
Yeah,
with
you know, back in the day, back in the day, it seems like a lot of the Michigan bands would play local festivals and local concerts, and we would always interact and intertwine with different bands. I was out with Ted Nugent just the other night at DTE Energy Center, and Ted just got 2 new knees, but he's doing good. He's 66 years old, still playing his guitar, still traveling around the world. And I reminded Ted of when Benny and the Jets opened for him back in the 70s at a little place in Flat Rock. There was a place called the Full Tilt Boogie Ballroom, and it was really kind of an old wooden barn, and 1,000 kids would pack into this wooden facility, and they would all start to bounce, and the whole floor would kind of bounce. And Ted said he definitely remembered playing at the Full Tilt Ballroom.
He's really a nice guy. I remember when I was at Channel 4 for a little while, we did an on-location program about the March of Dimes, and Ted Nugent was there, and I was able to talk to him and interview him, and he does have a heart of gold as well.
Yeah,
so
I was
talented and very full of character.
I was really surprised, even here at this DTE, when he's in the midst of a big concert, just coming off knee surgery, he really did, and you know, he's controversial and plenty of different stories going on with Ted Nugent. But I was really impressed with how he went above and beyond the call of duty to talk to people and shake hands and be that personable guy that he is.
And that's what it's all about. It's not Facebook. It's one-to-one.
Yeah, he really is.
You have to get out there.
And I got to say the same thing about Bob Seger too. Bob Seger, we've done several things with Bob Seger, and one time we were playing up in Canada, up in Ottawa, Canada, at a little bar, and Bob was in his band. I went to high school with a couple of guys in the band, and they were nice enough to come to they were playing at the Super X, which was like their Silver Dome, 80,000 seat, and Benny and the Jets were playing at the little corner bar, and after their concert, they came to the little bar we were playing, and we jammed, and we played, and had fun. And every person at this bar, after meeting Bob and talking to Bob, everyone said, boy, he really deserves to be the star that he is, because he just had the charisma and the magic to reach out and touch people, and they appreciated it. They could feel it. You know, they often say when it's real, when it's from the heart, people perceive that, and I think those guys have that.
Yeah. I think you have it too, big time.
I have it on Cherry Hill Road.
I would always go, because I live right in that area, and I look at that, and it would always bring a smile to my face, the van.
The famous Benny and the Jet van. Well, there's a Benny and the Jet Facebook page now, so if they type in Benny and the Jets as one word, it should pop right up on their computer, and the van lives on the web.
I love it. That's a famous van.
It's funny because that van had 300,000 miles. We drove that van.
What happened to it though?
It was in 1983, and the doors started. The doors started to go. And for a long time, I had it parked right in my driveway. Yes. And after we could drive it, 300,000 miles, and it went. It seemed like every 100,000 miles we'd have to put a new transmission in it. But the same motor kept going, and even when we finally got rid of the van, the motor was still rolling. A guy came up to the house and says, hey, I'll give you $400 for that van. And I said, it doesn't run. He says, oh, I don't care. I handed him the keys. And my wife says, he'll probably make more money than that parting it out or something. I said, well, good for him. I didn't have to air the tire up. I didn't have to fix the window. I didn't have to do anything. And then the little old ladies that lived next door down the street said, Benny, what did you do? We can't find our way home. Grandma can't get here for Christmas now. That was their landmark. The pizza delivery guy says, we used to deliver pizzas 2 streets down from the Benny and the Jet van. It was their landmark, and they wanted to take a collection up and get it back. I felt I was the scourge of the neighborhood and wanted to get it out of there, and they wanted it all to stay. So we missed the Benny and the Jet van.
I do too. I mean, I noticed that it wasn't there. It's like, oh my, I had a little panic attack. Where's the Benny and the Jets fan? It's got to come back. Benny and the Jets, Elton John, Yellow Brick Road. Tell me about that. I mean, that was amazing. I mean, you played at my high school prom, and then you know 74, and I'm thinking that's the same band. I mean, I was just starstruck at the time.
Well, you know,
talk to me. How did that happen? That's amazing.
It really was an accident in the stars. You know,
I don't know. I think he knows talent when he sees it.
Well, we didn't know much about the song. I'm not sure he knew much about the band. We more got this name from West Side Story. We were a 50s rock and roll kind of band, a Chubby Checker, Ricky Nelson kind of band, and we got West Side Story was the Sharks and the Jets.
Yes, right.
And so it was more
One of my
about.
favorites.
There was a band in town called Moose and the Sharks, and some of our guys played with Moose, and we do a lot of the same gigs. It was more about Sharks and Jets than Moose or Benny, and it just coincidentally became he came out with the Benny and the Jets, and it kind of
just took
haunted
off after
us.
that.
Yeah, it was everywhere we went from after that.
But it was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you directly made that correlation, and it was like, wow, Elton John, you know, and here you are, you know,
and that
our
makes
local band here.
Makes it real easy to remember the name then. So Ricky Nelson could see it in the newspaper, and 10 years later he'd say, I want to meet that Benny guy. What is that Benny? You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now you've been all around the world basically, and you've entertained. What's the absolute most memorable performance that you've had that really sticks out?
Well, you know, I kind of mentioned that one with Chubby Checker in Toronto. The Stork Club was famous. As a little kid, I remember every New Year's Eve you'd watch the Royal Canadian Mounties live from the fabulous Stork Club, and then to actually be on that stage and play with Chubby Checker, that was a great one. We got a lot of great stories like that. I remember being a youngster on vacation with the family in Florida, and wanting to play my little guitar, and driving by a place, a marquee, and on the marquee it said Bo Diddley. And my dad would say, boy, if you were really a guitar player, that you'd be like Bo Diddley. And then years later, we ended up touring with Bo Diddley and being part of Bo Diddley's band, and we played in Las Vegas with Bo Diddley for 15 shows, and people like Bill Cosby were there, and Ted Turner, and I can remember calling my dad from Las Vegas, and back then playing Las Vegas was really it was kind of something. I can remember calling my dad and saying, hey Dad, I remember that Bo Diddley guy?
Wow.
we're playing in Las Vegas, and Dick Clark's here, and so and so's here, and so that Vegas was really a great memory. Even around town, I remember playing at the Rooster Tail and thinking, boy, that was really something in its day. Downtown Detroit had the famed Rooster Tail nightclub,
and
to
still
play,
there.
to play the Rooster Tail was a great event. To play Cobo Arena was a great milestone for our band. I always thought that was a great thing. But like you say, we really did. We played from Montreal, Canada, to Los Angeles, to Miami, and back again. So we really traveled a lot of stops. I remember playing at a place in the Pershing Arena in I can't remember where the Pershing Arena was, in Nebraska. I think it was in Nebraska. And being in the dressing room getting ready, and there was a plaque on the wall, and it said, "This is the last place Elvis Presley played."
Oh.
And so here I was sitting in a dressing
you say
room.
Elvis and my heart pumps.
I was in the dressing room, and that was kind of, I go, wow, you know, that was a wow kind of moment. Elvis Presley sat in this room, and it was the last place he performed. And so, you know, we stumble into a lot of things like that. I need to write a book. I need to write this down. I can't remember all this stuff. we'll forget all the cool stuff. Benny and the Jets, we've been in a couple books. There's a book around town called Motor City Rock and Roll of the 60s and 70s. And there's it's kind of a history of a lot of the bands. We're mentioned in that. I became a big sports fan. driving around the country, and bands are listening to music all night. And so when you get in the car, you don't necessarily want to turn music on. You want to see what the Detroit Tigers are doing or what the Red Wings did. So we became sports fans and befriended J.T. the Brick, who had a big national sports radio show in 300 cities across the country. And once again, that felt really close to us, because he'd be on a radio in Nebraska or Ottawa, Canada, and we'd say, boy, I remember we played that place or this place. And we started calling into the radio show, and he used one of our songs for his theme song on the radio. And so he wrote a book called The Handoff, which you can get at Barnes & Noble or anywhere. And on page 122, Benny and the Jets are mentioned in that book, too.
What are your plans now? Where are you going to be? If your fans, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, the Facebook has become a great thing. The Facebook's a great tool. We always check in and we can interconnect on Facebook around the world. People from Florida, people from Canada, anywhere can check in with us on Facebook, and we try to keep it up to date with jobs. And we still play locally. The band still does the concerts and festivals, but fewer and fewer. Last year we played the Wyandotte Spring Fling was a big event at the Yak Arena, and we went to Boston and we played at the Boston Harley Davidson Ride Across America with Eddie Money and Steppenwolf.
Wow.
So that was kind of exciting. And then locally,
Valerie Bertinelli's old book,
yes,
right?
yes. And then locally, I play the acoustic guitar a lot, just to fill in, do a lot of solo jobs to fill in between the big concerts. And I play a little place on Sunday afternoons in Wyandotte, Michigan, right downtown Wyandotte, called Bourbons on Sycamore Street.
Oh, okay.
Every Sunday from 2 to 6, very casual, very enjoyable. And there's another dinner place I play on Fridays.
I want to go there.
Fridays called Peterland's on Farmington, south of 9 Mile. But if you go to the Facebook, it'll keep you up to date.
Wonderful. You're also going to be at the Dearborn Heights Firefighters Chili Cook-Off, and that's August 16th, coming up on Saturday.
That really is an event. And I'll put that down as probably our big event of the year, our favorite event of the year.
Absolutely.
And in part because the Dearborn Heights firefighters put this on by themselves. They don't have the state or the city backing and put them on money, and they raise 100% of the money goes to the charities for the burned children, and it's a great event. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to be there, but they do it at Upper Parkland Park, which basically is Ann Arbor Trail and Greenfield. I have to remember how to get there myself. Take Ann Arbor Trail to Evergreen. There we go. And it's in the park.
Parkland Park.
Right. It's in the park right there. And
you contribute your time for this
as
well.
Yeah, there's bands playing, and they obviously have a chili cook-off. You can taste the chili, and there's food and drinks and big tents, and it's become a mini festival onto itself, and it's just a great event. I couldn't encourage people more to stop by that event.
Good, and they get to see you and maybe talk to you a bit. Saturday, August 16th,
yes.
Right, at the Upper Parkland Park for the Dearborn Heights Firefighters.
We should get you to come down to be a celebrity chili judge. That's
art.
That's an art in itself.
I make a good chili.
That's an art. They tell you when you're a celebrity judge, you judge on the look of the chili, the smell, the aroma of the chili, and the taste. And it's a huge art. Some people like thick chili, some people like spicy hot chili, some people like mild chili. So what you pick as the best chili might not be the same one I picked or the next guy picked. So it's kind of interesting.
So it's a chili fest. I love it. I absolutely love it. You're going to play for us?
I would love to play.
Thank you very much for being here. Benny, from Benny and the Jets. I'm starstruck. I don't think I'm going to get over this for a while, and just honored to have him here on So That's What You Do. And here's Benny from Benny and the Jets. Enjoy.
So that's what you do. So that's what you do. All right, when I was a youngster growing up here in Dearborn Heights, Michigan, there used to be a little place called the Edgewater Amusement Park.
Yes.
We might not have anybody old enough to remember Edgewater Park.
I remember.
It wasn't a big place like Disneyland or Cedar Point, but it had the rides. It had bumper cars and had one called the Wild Mouse, and was famous for an old wooden roller coaster. That roller coaster might have been the scariest roller coaster in the world. Da 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 da. Last night took a walk after dark a swinging place called Edgewater Park to take a look and see what I could see. That's where the girls are. We took a ride on the shoop-de-shoop. The girl I sat beside was mighty cute, and when I looked, she was holding on to me. My heart went flying up like a rocket ship, and down like a roller coaster, fast like the loop-de-loop, and around like a merry-go-round. They ate and ate at a hot dog stand. They danced around to Benny and the Jets band. And when I could, I gave that girl a hug. Hey, the tunnel of love. You'll never know how great a kiss could be till you get one high on a Ferris wheel and fell in love down in Edgewater Park. You know it's Palisades Park. You know it's Boblo Island. You know it's Walled Lake Casino.